In the meantime, I think we can start. So we have with us our guest, Vibhor. So Vibhor will be taking this whole workshop. He has a huge industry experience, and till now he has mentored more than 1,000 people, right? And he has also helped a lot of brands hire for machine learning roles. So he actually understands the industry pretty well. He has seen what a company looks for in your profile, right? For to getting hired as an ML engineer, right? And what all things you need to do step by step to become an ML engineer, right? So I'll hand over to Vibhor, and I think you can take over.
Yeah, thanks, Sudhanshu. Thanks a lot for the quick introduction. Right, so we'll quickly jump on. I think most of the people have joined, right? Or we need to wait for them.
Yeah, I think people will keep on joining. So
Okay.
yeah, I think we can start.
Yeah, yeah, great. Sounds good. So the roadmap to becoming a machine learning engineer, right?
Right.
Great. So let me just share my screen, and I'll quickly share whatever the insights and value addition that I can provide to most of the students present here. And I'm sure all of you belong from a very varied background, right? Some of you in different stages, different year of your college. And I'll make sure that it's worth a while the next 30 minutes for you guys. So let me just quickly share my screen and quickly jump onto the workshop. And yeah, 1 second. I think you need to give me any permission, is it?
I don't think so. Let me just check.
1 second.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I can see it now.
yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So let's quickly see where you guys are at this point of time. Let me just switch off the video for a second. Yeah. So let's quickly take a look at where all of you probably belong to. Some of you might be in a stage where you have no clue. What you have what you have to do next, or what direction you need to take in your career, right? Something similar to how I was at least 7 years ago, 7 8 years ago when I was in college. Second, maybe some of you would have done some interview ng course, or any other curriculum, maybe on any of the MOOC platform. And there's always this question, right? If that is enough for you to start implementing, or going for an ML application, or applying for a job or an internship. One classical stage where a lot of people reach out to me, a lot of students reach out to me for, is where they belong from a lot non-CS background, right? And there's always this thought process that can they pursue a career in ML, right? With respect to imagining that there's a lot of coding involved, right? That is one set of perception. Or you might be having some basic machine learning understanding, and you are looking forward to what next for you, right? One more stage is where maybe you are full-fledged, you have done certain courses, you have certain projects in your resume, and then you're looking how to apply and prepare for an ML internship, right? And there might be some first years thinking that you have enough time for the next 4 years or 3 years, right, to actually learn, implement, have your hands-on projects with you, right? And this is where I'm assuming that all of you, since you registered for this particular workshop, so you would want to reach to any of these places, right? And even more, right? Where you either want to be ML engineer, an LP engineer, a computer vision engineer, maybe looking forward to be an AI developer or a data scientist, right? Or maybe an ML ops engineer, right? So any of these profile that you either want to get an internship for, or you want to apply for a full-time role, right? So we'll quickly look at how you can actually reach there, right? So what are certain things you can do to make sure your pathway or your roadmap to becoming a machine learning engineer is simplified for you, right? And that applies to all of you, right? Any of the stage that you are in, there are certain things that you should right away start whenever you look for ML, right? So one of the couple of pointers before I discuss them. So one of the challenge that whenever I interact with students, which I see is that most of you, right? I mean, looking at the entire landscape of machine learning, right? You have computer vision, you have NLP, you have reinforcement learning, right? So one of you had also raised that question, right? Where to start that part, right? With respect to especially when you apply for a job, all right? So the first and foremost thing that you need to do is to identify your niche, right? And how do you narrow down your niche? You look at the type of data which is there. So either you want to operate on tabular data, image data, or textual data, right? Uh, Tabular data where you have certain tabular columns, rows and columns kind of a data, image or video, right? Or textual as well as audio, right? So once you know that, okay, I need to start looking at say image first, right? Then you are looking more towards a computer vision side of things. Now within image, once you have your set of data sort of decided for you, look at what problems within that domain you can solve, right? So say if you decide that, okay, I want to start with image data, right? Then maybe with image you can look at different problems which are there. You can look at object detection, you can look at image classification, right? Or maybe image segmentation, right? So that's how you need to first identify or narrow down your particular area of expertise, which you need to focus on right away whenever you start your learning, instead of starting in a very broader way, right? So say if you go and pursue a course, right, you are going through a lot of algorithms, right, which is perfectly fine. But when you start implementing in real time or during industry use cases, it's very crucial that you make one area as your expert area, right, where you specialize in, right? So the best way to diverge that is based on the data type that you can operate on, and within that particular data you diverge based on the kind of problem that you want to pick up first, right? As a second step, identify the learning gap which is required. So say if you're looking at a computer vision problem, right? So list down, or within computer vision you want to look at say object detection, right? So list down all the topics which are there that you have to cover, say for object detection, right? Now let's take an example of so computer vision, right? So you need to look at what all image processing techniques are there. You need to look at what all algorithms are there which are applied for object detection. You need to look at a prerequisite, to implement that is to have an understanding of neural network, right? So in this way, you are able to narrow down your entire, the landscape to few topics or subtopics, right? And then create a plan, create a week by week plan to reach there, right? Now, how do you create a plan and what do you include in your plan, right? So again, there are multiple ways. One, I was mentioning that if you're really a beginner, right, follow one end-to-end course, right, which is very crucial whether you give an interview for an internship or you give an interview for a full-time role, right? Or as simple as you call before calling yourself ML expert or ML engineer, at least one end-to-end course is required so that you do not miss any of the concepts which you are which you go through while you build a machine learning pipeline. Yeah. That concept could be as simple as doing analysis, as simple as doing feature engineering part, right? So you're aware of all the concepts, and maybe not all of them will be used when you actually go and implement a project. So that is the reason, if you're a beginner, one end-to-end course would really help you, right? Once that is done, or something that can go in parallel, and once you have your expert area narrowed down, then you can list down a topic within that expert area. So say let's look at object detection. You list down all the topics in object detection, create a maximum 4 to 5 weeks plan, right? So work in a sprint instead of creating say 6 months plan, right? Whatever is possible within those topics, right? So nobody's asking you to become an expert right from day one, right? But as and when you implement things, you need to have a plan for that, right? Collect corresponding resources to that plan. So say within object detection, you have multiple topics and subtopics. For each of those topics, you can either collect set of video tutorials on YouTube. You can collect set of maybe some courseware or a MOOC course videos. You can select set of blogs which are there, or maybe become part of those communities, right? So I mean, again, I think in Qubit also there's a lot of emphasis which is given on the community, right? And that is one of the most powerful part that you should be a part of, right? That will help you grow as a developer as well as an ML engineer, right? Learn with example codes. So right now, one of the very common thing when we evaluate a lot of resumes is there are a lot of examples that you come across in your courses, right? You start jotting it down in your resume, right? So think about this, right? The moment you write, say, a project house price prediction, right? By default, the expectation is that this is something which is readily available online. You can just clone a Git repo and then start implementing it and put it in your resume, right? Try avoiding that as much as possible, right? Most of the common project example code or the example projects, right? Learn from them, but do not sort of put it as your project in your resume, right? Instead, look for other projects within your particular niche, right? We'll come to that, right? One of the most important part that any interviewer, whether you are looking for an internship or a full-time role, looks for is a hands-on project, right? Again, when I focused on creating a niche, so say you took image as your niche, then you came down to object detection. Now look at object detection use cases across different industry, right? So say for it could be as simple as detecting people whether they are wearing a cap or not. I mean, say there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and there is a video camera there, and you want to detect whether they are wearing a cap or not wearing a cap, right? So for each of the industry, you need to have a use case around it before you start go and implement that, right? So you take, say for example, this use case, implement that project end to end, right? Instead of taking up a regular example code from the web and putting in your resume, build a project, look for data sets, right? See if you can get a pre-built data set, or you want to maybe create some data set and annotate that, right? You can work both ways. And there are again smart ways to figure out different use cases from the same data set that you get on Kaggle or in any other place, right? So do different projects. Don't linger on to the same set of projects which are very common in the industry. Differentiate yourself from there, right? From your project, or you take the same project and do it in a different way, right? So say for example, the same example of whether a person is wearing a cap or not a cap, maybe you can apply multiple algorithms on that, right? Maybe the same project you can extend to a stage where you want to give a count of people wearing a cap and not wearing a cap. Maybe from cap you want to go to a place where whether it's a cook or a chef who is wearing a cap and not wearing a cap, right? Maybe you can provide analysis, right? During what time period are people more active in the kitchen, right? So same data set, but you are sort of deriving different outcome for a particular use case of an industry, right? Third is showcase your project, right? So say even if you do just modeling part may not be enough, right? Or just creating a small, code base, putting an image, getting an output will not be enough for you to showcase your project in your resume or, over the web on your profile anywhere, right? So best, go to option is you go and deploy that, right? You'll learn something, even especially when you take that particular AI model and you go and deploy that. Best option is that put a very basic UI on top of it, and whenever say you are giving an interview or whenever you just give that link on your resume, right, where people can actually go and use whatever that you have built, right? Second option, say you are not well versed with the backend technologies, go create a video, right? Now when I say create a video, right, start from a business problem. So one way is you just create a say 20 seconds video, add another 20 seconds where you explain your project in the same video, publish it on LinkedIn, push it on GitHub, put your GitHub link in your particular resume. Say whatever the project that you are working on comes out to be a really novel project where you say crossed a certain accuracy, or maybe something which you can publish as well, right? So even publication is something that you can look at in an good enough journal, right? Very important thing, which is even I've seen a lot of students where there are good amount of projects in their resume which are really good, but the communication is not clear when the interview when they're giving the interview, right? So think about this, right? As an interviewer, even before you start talking about your algorithms, your accuracy and all of those jargons, what an interviewer really wants to know is what is the problem that you are solving and what is the current way of solving this problem. More of it could be a non-AI way of solving that problem, or could be a regular pain point in the existing process of the industry, right? So start from there, right? Start from what problem you're solving, then go to your solution. And again, your solution is not implementing, say faster RCNN. That is not a solution, right? Your solution is, classical example of what we were talking about, right? So your problem was that, in a kitchen, a lot of people, due to not wearing of caps, we find a lot of hair, in food, right? And it's not very, clean and from a hygienic point of view, right? That is the problem. The current way of doing that is maybe there's a manager, who goes to the kitchen, checks on the staff once in a while, right? The solution that you're giving is you are giving this monitoring of, staff wearing cap or not a cap in real time, right? Such that none of these mistakes are, done. That is a solution. How you're implementing that solution is where your algorithms and your approach comes in, right? That is where you mention, okay, you're solving it as an object detection problem, right? Do not go start, with the jargons of faster RCN or any of the algorithms, right? Be very simple about that, right? The interviewer needs to understand really two important things, right? One, do you have an understanding of what you're solving? Does it even require you solving that problem, right? And third is how much, to what extent have you seen the problem, or to what extent have you solved, right? And then comes how much do you know about the algorithms or the approach or the coding part, right? Now, a couple of things that you need to mention while you're implementing. Sometimes it is not clear what have you used to implement it, right? So you use, say, faster RCN. How have you implemented it? What performance metrics have you used, to implement it? What benchmark have you used to implement it? So there could be a case where, say, most of you, may not have gone into the detailing of the project. So do mention what is the future scope of this, like what next for you within the same project, right? So this is really, really important when you communicate your project. Your entire interview can go around this, right? Maybe 45 minutes of interview, half an hour could be just spent on this, and be thorough about it. Like, so when you give a brief overview of a project, be thorough. Like by default, the moment you mention faster RCNN, you will have questions around it, right? You'll have questions around neural network, right? So have your background, understanding or theoretical understanding as well, very clear when you do that, right? The last question where, when we were looking at some of the, questions that you guys have posted is, particularly for internships, right? How and where do you apply for internships? There are a lot of internship platform, Qubit being, one of them, and the most, I would say the growing one right now. Sudhanshu will agree. So, so look for those platforms. That is one. Second thing, with respect to LinkedIn, right? So definitely have your LinkedIn presence, right? And when I say LinkedIn, just sending cold messages of any random, to any random, hiring manager or maybe a tech lead may not suffice, right? Start engaging with them on their content, right? And start creating content. When I say creating content, not just for the sake of creating content, but for this, from an intention of contributing to ML, right? It could be a simple thing that you found out or that you learned in the process, right? Third, very important, is to start engaging communities, right? A lot of students that, I have interacted with in the past have got offers just by interacting within communities. There are people like, you and us who are a part of those communities. We engage in those communities. We also learn from that communities, right? And there are a lot of communities right now. There are a lot of Slack channels you'll see, a lot of places where you can, contribute, ask your questions, connect with people, right? So that is something that will help you a lot, not just for internships, but even for, getting the right, job as well, right? So that's a quick, couple of steps, for you guys to plan, narrow down your niche, and create and start implementing a project, start showcasing that in your resume, and then, getting your communication right about your project in your, interview. Yeah, open to any questions that you might have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there are one or two questions that are mentioned in the chat. I think we can pick up those, and maybe after that we can pick up the question that people have asked in the form. Right?
Okay. The first, I think, question is, what is the best method to develop a front end for an ML or a DL model? I've seen YT tutorial using TensorFlow.js, Flask, or Kiwi framework. What is the standard procedure used in the industry? Okay, great. A bit of an advanced question, but Think about this, okay? When you say developing a front end, whenever you look at any sort of application, look from a microservices architecture, right? So no matter where you have to showcase that, one, you should look from a microservices architecture and develop a REST API first, right, around that. Second thing is you look into the part where you can scale that REST API, right? Whether you are getting the required latency or performance from an API or not. Third is where your front end comes in. Classically, if you are preparing something for the demo, Django works really well in terms of quick development. So you can use Django templates to develop your particular UI. That's really easy. If you are hands-on with say front end, React.js, so React.js or AngularJS would be a good stack to integrate with those APIs. You have mentioned something called as TensorFlow JS. So one quick understanding, you have mentioned Flask or Kiwi framework, particularly if your backend stack is in Python, or you're using either of those libraries in ML. Ideally, you can use Django REST framework to create an API and the entire Django with template, right, to create along with the front end. All right. So in case you need to say tomorrow scale it as well, Django REST might scale better than Flask. I mean, again, both can be scaled, but it depends on how, what you are hands-on with, right? Second is the TensorFlow JS is what we have mentioned, right? Now, again, that depends on your use case. So say if your use case is where you don't want to send API call to the backend, right? Then you use things like TensorFlow JS, right, which can run on your browser, or use something like TF Lite, where you want to integrate on your mobile app, right? So it totally depends on use case to use case. There's a trade-off between accuracy and the performance time when we talk about TensorFlow JS or TF Lite, for that matter. Another question: can you recommend some communities? One, I think, I think Sudhanshu can mention that even Qubit has a very active community right now. So one, I'll endorse that. Right, you can use it. Apart from that, there's no specific community that I have in the back of my mind. But if you just go on Google, right, you'll find good amount of groups and communities, particularly Slack channels. So maybe I'll give you a couple of names. Right, so there are communities of Python developers, right? There are communities by the name of AI researchers and enthusiasts, right? Where a lot of research-driven discussions are done. There are communities of, one second, yeah. There are communities which are just machine learning engineers, right? So a lot of Slack channels are there that you can be a part of.
Yeah.
How important is it to learn cloud technology after doing an ML course? I mean, it totally depends. It's a good to have because anytime a company would prefer somebody who say can take that AI model, and deploy it or run it, create an API out of it, right? So that's always a preference, particularly when you look at startups and mid-sized companies. If you're opting for an MNC, they have a very well-defined job description, right? So say ML engineer or data scientist does ABCD things, they may not be involved in the deployment process, right? So if you're looking for a startup, definitely, have your basic hands-on with, writing an API to deploying of that API, right? That's really required. If you're looking maybe a mid-sized, may or may not be required. For an MNC, most of the time it is not required, right? But it's a good to have skill, and definitely you should, that's an add-on to your skill or something that can differentiate you when you apply for an ML role. Is DSA, data structures and algorithms required for ML engineers? For a lot of classical roles that you apply to right now, I mean, still the case where you have like initial round could be around DSA, right? And I'll tell you, it's not like DSA doesn't help when you, go and do a lot of machine learning work, right? So not all the systems which are, used in the industry right now are completely ML based. Right, there's a combination of ML based plus basic business rules which work along with that, right? And that's where knowledge of DSA is required. When you have to optimize any of your machine learning model, the knowledge of DSA is required. So when you have to write quality code, right, your knowledge of DSA is required, right? So it's not a must, but for a lot of interviews, you might be asked a couple of DSA questions, especially if you are from a CS background. So if you are from a CS background, you have gone through a curriculum of DSA, by default, the expectation is that you should be aware of OOPS concept, you should be aware of DSA. For a lot of non-CS folks, this may or may not be the expectation from an interviewer. Yeah.
I think there are a couple of companies even who hired through Qubit recently, right? And the criteria that we have observed on our platform till now is that different size of companies hire based on different criteria. For example, if there is a small to mid-sized company, right? Like there is this Ethan AI which came on our platform. It's a Singapore-based company, right? Their hiring process for machine learning was completely based on project. They gave an assignment on machine learning, right? And they hired completely based on that. While we have observed there is this company, Jade Associate, I think it's a pretty big name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the hiring process there involves little bit of DSA. So their first round was DSA based, where they asked, questions on DSA, and who has cleared. Now they have discussed the projects that you have built in your resume. So DSA is required, right? But not just like only DSA, right?
Yeah.
You will need a combination of both when you go for big companies.
Yeah, definitely. And for a lot of companies, those are the part of initial rounds, right, where they give you some quant, especially for MNCs, right, where they have set procedures, right, where the first round could be around quant and logic plus DSA kind of a questions, right? How to improve SQL and Python coding logic, that is the first. Again, it depends on what role you apply for. So if you are looking for a data engineer role, definitely, they are looking for Python or SQL kind of, thought process. And maybe whenever you apply for a company, right, it may not be just SQL queries, right? What they're looking for is they're looking for more from a logical perspective. Can you do joins in future? Say if you deal with big data, right? If you classically use Spark, Spark has a lot of join procedures that you have to pursue, right? So there are more questions inclined toward that. For SQL, I think how do you improve that is I think for SQL I did it long back, but think more. I mean, there are again a lot of resources available. Again, for SQL, focus more on the queries part, or how to write complicated queries there. So that will clear your doubts, right? For at least the smaller queries. Don't go by the ABCD of SQL, right? That may or may not help you. Same goes for Python. Again, a lot of classical resources available. My suggestion would be, if you know any one programming language, then don't start from zero for Python, right? Go take up a project and start implementing that. On the way, you'll learn Python, right? So for example, for Python, just take up any basic, crawling, just scroll a website, right? That will help you through the entire, pipeline of Python.
Yeah.
I'm having a bit of a trouble in applying and implementing TF and scikit-learn. I even looked at the documentation, look cryptic, and I end up copying pasting the code. Can you please refer to me any sources to learn scikit-learn and TF? As a part of the cohort, yes, we'll share the resources. Right now, I don't have the resources handy, but one suggestion would be, so the different set of like ways that each of us grasp a certain concept, right? So for some people, documentation is easy, right? Because they want to get some, like they want to look at the syntax there. They already are aware of the concept. They want to quickly look at the syntax. Documentation works for them. For some people, maybe watching a video helps, right? So my suggestion is, say if it looks cryptic, go for alternatives, right? There are a lot of blogs which are available, a lot of YouTube videos, which are available, right? And one quick suggestion is, where instead of watching, this is one of the question I come across very often is, I've watched the entire 1.5 2 hours of video, and then I still don't get it, right? Don't go and just start from scratch. If you have an option to fast forward the video, figure out first that if this video is even relevant to your query or not, and then start watching that particular course or a video. All right, so look for alternative ways. If it looks cryptic, yeah, there's no shortcut there. So do I need to be good at maths to be an ML engineer? Okay, so again, some basic understanding or intuition is required, right? So as simple as you have basic intuition of like what is the purpose of using differential, right? This kind of intuition is there, right? What happens when it's a downward curve or upward curve, right? So this intuition is enough for you to jump into ML. But on the go, when you start, learning ML, two things that I really suggest is, one, you need to be really, you need to start looking at statistics, because no matter what kind of data that you work with, you will do, data analysis first, right? So that is where your statistic knowledge will come handy. Second, also start looking at basics of probability that we study as a part of, our curriculum. But it's not a prerequisite directly, but it's really a good to have good knowledge of mathematics in detail, right? But basic intuition is anyway required for you to, if you want to especially understand how this is working, right? How any algorithm is working. Could you recommend any good course for beginners to learn machine learning other than MUNG as I've completed it? Uh, so if you have completed, Andrew NG, I would suggest, like I was mentioning, right? When you create your niche, look at the topics. Instead of going for a course, start looking at those topics in detail, right? That will help you more than doing any other course. Because even though if I suggest you any other course, right, that will again be a repetition of at least 30% would be very similar to what you've already done, right? Versus you start focusing more on the projects, and on the way, whatever concepts are there, right, you can learn that, right? Especially when you look at ML. Right now, if you're looking at any deep learning kind of courses, again, a lot of free courseware is also there. But if you're looking for advanced stuff, look at MIT courseware. I think Stanford also have their tutorials on YouTube, especially when you want to look at the details in algorithm part. Right. If you're looking at more of implementation side, for deep learning, there's a ebook by the person who actually created Keras framework. That's really helpful in terms of explaining the deep learning concept along with the snippets of code. Right, I think it's called Deep Learning with Keras something. It's a very, very famous book. You'll find the ebook clearly there, right? So that could be a good start, right? Instead of doing completely doing a course again. Yeah. I have experience with big data analysis, Hadoop, Spark, Kafka, ML projects. How do I pursue a career with these in cloud tech? So for Spark, Kafka, I think you need to look at more towards data engineering side, right? And I mean, one more suggestion is that this combination of Spark, Kafka kind of plus machine learning is a really good combination, right? So especially you are in third year, you have the entire next year with you. Start, maybe if you're interested, start looking into the machine learning side of things as well, right? And it's a really good combination for somebody in the industry to have somebody with these two skill set on the table, right? Especially a startup where we cannot hire a separate data engineer and a separate data scientist, right? So that really helps. What level of Python knowledge is required? Ideally, basic programming knowledge with basic syntax of Python is required, right? And some hands-on with pandas is required. Rest of the things you can learn on the go, right? So if you're really good in programming, basics of Python. Rest of the things you can Google, right, while implementing, right? So that would suffice. Can the speaker and host post their LinkedIn?
Shared that link.
Okay. Most of the students placed from this company were from IIT, TIT. Can students in normal colleges get internship? Definitely yes. I have personally come across a lot of people, and these are the folks who completed their fourth year. They joined as an intern. In the first initial company where I was working, I was leading the machine learning team there. So a lot of them who came, they came as an intern, for 3 months, and they were hired as a full-time employee. Everything from scratch they learned as a part of that company, right? So the only thing is, first you have to take this background out of your, thought process that you are from a tier 2 college. It doesn't matter really, right? Maybe it matters for some of the hiring managers for certain reasons that they have. But if you really stand out with your projects, you really publish your projects on LinkedIn, on your GitHub profile is really good, right? None of these things matters, at least today, where people are realizing that okay, somebody is doing the work really well. Credentials do not matter, right? In fact, just to add on to that, I know somebody who didn't even do any of the bachelor's, who is a really good machine learning engineer right now, right? Who started coding when he was I think 16 or 17, right? 2 years is where he learned this entire ML part on his own, without any courses as well. Yeah, so that ideally doesn't matter much. what are the career option after doing ML program if you are from a non-CS branch? So ideally, a lot of folks these days are from a non-CS branch who I see, coming up really, really well as a data scientist or as a machine learning engineer, right? So career openings are all these career options that I showed you are open for you guys. One advantage is say, I'll give an example. So say if you are coming from mechanical background, right? A mechanical background plus the knowledge of machine learning makes you a very good candidate for any robotic automation company, for any manufacturing company, right? For any automobile company, right? So they'll prefer a mechanical plus machine learning experience more than somebody who is coming from CS plus ML experience, right? So there are a lot of career openings. Again, quick tip there is whatever your branch is, look for application of machine learning in that niche and start applying for those companies who are in that particular branch, right? That will give you an added advantage compared to rest of the CS folks in the club. Recommend a book for stats where we can solve real life problems. So there is no direct again book in my mind. Maybe we will share this as a part of cohort real soon. I'll keep that in mind. But probably there are some topics which are required, right? So wherever you learn it from works. Anything which helps you do data analysis. So what you can start with is start applying each of the statistics concepts within Excel sheet first, right? If you are aware, I mean hands on with that, all right? So that could be a good go to point. Uh, can you connect? Do competitive programming is necessary? It's not necessary. I would project it this way that your hands-on project is greater than your competitive programming is greater than your additional skills is greater than your theoretical skills. This is how I would like to put that. Is this program helpful to get done directly after finish? I think Sudhanshu can take
Yeah,
that.
yeah, already answered
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. Can you name a few platform where practice advanced SQL? Again, not more of a SQL person, but I think Code Academy has a particular queries that you can run. So in our time, Code Academy was free. I'm not sure if it's free right now, but that is a good platform to start implementing queries. Again, my suggestion would be you just create a database, not create a table, create a complicated database use cases, and start querying on your own. Look at an answer that you require from an analysis point of view, and start writing SQL queries. Do I need to be good at maths? I think this one I've already answered.
Yeah.
Above. Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
So after this, I'll be covering a little bit more
Yeah.
about our platform Qubit, through which a lot of people are getting internships. So I would share my screen. I'll show you what is it that Qubit is. So Qubit is basically a platform to help you get paid internships. Through our platform, I think almost every day, a lot of students, whether from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, they're all of them are getting internships through us, and the stipend range through our platform is basically higher than any other in the market. So I'll just share my screen and show you actually what it is, right? So through our platform, these are like some of the trending internships. You can see there are variety of internships. If you want to become an ML engineer, there is this section of data science. So these are top 2 internships in data science. If you want to become full stack, if you want to become a data engineer, and if you get into a dashboard, you will also see a lot of internships in machine learning. Now all of them are paid internships through our platform, and I'll show you if people are getting internships or not. So this is a hall of fame in our dashboard, student dashboard, where you can see a lot of people are getting internships almost every day. And these are not just from IIT, right? These are people from almost everywhere, right? There are people from Narula Institute of Technology as well, Manipal, University of Hyderabad, University of Mumbai, SGT University. There are lots and lots of different kind of people, right? So it's very easy. You just need to create a profile and you need to start applying for internships through our platform. Now, as Vibhor has mentioned, like projects play a very important role, right? And without projects, I mean, getting shortlisted for any company, it usually is not a good idea. I mean, it's actually tougher to get into a company without projects, because projects are used while a company shortlists you and during your resume shortlisting round. They'll even use the project during your interview round to discuss what you have done in machine learning so far, right? And we've seen that the student who have like 2 or 3 good quality projects in their profile, right, their chances of getting an internships are like way higher than the people who do not have, projects or have one projects, right? So I mean, for our community specifically, we have started this ML engineer program, right? And those who are part of a QED community, we started an ML engineer program. It's a 4-week program where Vibhor will be a mentor, and we will be building uh, insurance industry specific problem in machine learning, and we will build an AI model from scratch. We will develop it, we will deploy it, and we will showcase it during this whole 4-week program. Now, what will you get when you do this program? As I mentioned, importance of projects are very, very high. Whether you are applying from our platform, whether you are applying from your in-campus internships or jobs, or you're applying for off-campus, the importance of projects, it's humongous. I mean, on our platform specifically, I can tell you the stats. More than 80% of companies, they look for projects to shortlist people. So if you have 2 or 3 projects in your profile, your chances of getting shortlisted for any ML role or in general in any profile if you're applying will be 2 to 3 times higher than if you do not have it in your profile. So that is why we have launched this ML engineer program, and you can check out the details from this link. I'll also share this across with all of you, and yeah, check this out and register for it. This program starts from 22nd of February, right? I mean, early bird registrations are going on currently, and so yeah, I think rest I'll share this link across you. You can check this out. It's a really awesome program, and as soon as you register, we will add you to a dedicated Slack group where there are mentors, where there are TS, who will help you clear all your doubts. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, just to add on to what Sudhanshu said, the idea of the cohort is not to classically feed you with just be like any other course that you're doing where we feed you with a lot of information, right? That is not the purpose of the cohort. The purpose of the cohort is to you where you actually go and implement things, right? Rather than and then you learn things on the go while you implement things, right? Which is what at least when we hire, we take care of that. And like you mentioned, right, the project is like a starting point. Nobody checks your college or your any of the other stuff in your resume, right? The first thing, especially at a level where we are evaluating students, is their project, right? And even for you to mention the resume, I see a lot of resumes where there are a lot of other things which are mentioned on top in the first half versus the project which are there at the bottom, right? Versus you should highlight your project first, right, and then maybe your extracurricular, right? These are 2 major pointers that any interviewer looks for when they evaluate either for internship or full time. So yeah.
Yeah, so I'll also add the link of this one in the chat. If you guys want to check it out, you can check it out from here. We will also circulate it as an email. So yeah, if you guys have watched any videos, right, there are a lot of free content available, right? If you have learned from there, right, this program is definitely for you to get you in hands-on mode, right? Build some projects, and that is where the major learning comes from. And I think on that note, we would like to wrap this whole workshop. I hope a lot of you have had a wonderful experience hearing the experience from Vibhor, right? So thank you, thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for joining this session.
Yeah. Have a great evening. Bye bye.